Welcome to our latest Indie Dev Spotlight video here for the channel. Every week we cover indie games live on our Wednesday night streams, and these videos are the recaps of it. For our first game, this is Ponpu, and this is a very crazily looking Bomberman-esque kind of game. You play as these kinds of duck creatures who are trying to, I guess, save the world or save themselves from evil robots and enemies. Each Ponpu has a unique power that goes with it, and the game does feature competitive, I believe cooperative multiplayer as well. So the big twist, or the big unique thing that's different from Bomberman, is you're able to kind of launch your eggs at enemies, and they'll bounce off the walls, and if you're not careful, they may bounce right into you at the same time. And I love the hand-drawn aesthetic of this game. Reminds me a lot of like 90s cartoons in that capacity. With that said, this is still at the end of the day a Bomberman style game. So if that kind of gameplay doesn't interest you, then I don't think the twists and the art are going to be enough for it. Drawn look to it. In terms of gameplay, at the end of the day, this is still Bomberman. And if you're not a fan of that kind of, place it and then hopefully hits the enemy design, Ponpu is probably not going to do it for you. In terms of any kind of gameplay complaints, it could be a little bit tricky fighting fast-moving enemies or some of the larger, crazy boss fights, as you see right here with this, incredibly buff frog. And I ran into some issues with his hitbox and sometimes hitting me where it didn't seem like it would have worked. But still though, very imaginative game, and I'm curious to see what they're going to do more with it in terms of boss design, or just trying to elevate this Bomberman style gameplay. And if you enjoy what you see here, I would say definitely give this one a check when it is hopefully released later this year. For our next game, we go someplace very different. This is Lamentum, and this is a isometric survival horror game that takes place, I think this is during the 19th century. We play as this man here who is in fact not dead on a bed. He has come to a mysterious mansion to try and save his wife from a strange malady. And as you can see what's going on the screen right now, weird things begin to happen. Our mission is to explore the mansion, solve all those lovely survival horror-esque puzzles, and try not to get killed by the strange creatures that lie within. I really like the hand-drawn aesthetic. It's a different kind of style than Ponpu from a few minutes ago. And the game itself is played very much like the old school Alone in the Dark, Resident Evil kind of survival horror. So expect puzzles, item management, and unfortunately some very clunky controls. So we're back to having a very limited inventory. And when you run out, when you run out of space, you will have to go back to the nearest storage chest to get items. And the whole inventory system itself is very fiddly. I guess that's the only way I can really describe it. And I had some issues with getting it to properly click on certain things or select certain items. Part of that could be, dead zone issues on my controller and things like that. But the game also has that classic annoyance that only the item that's in your hand, as you can see in the bottom right hand corner, will actually be represented or will be used when you're trying to solve or interact with something. So if you're not sure what the right item is for a solution, you're going to have to, cycle through your entire inventory one at a time and hope that you have that right item. And again, we're back to Resident Evil Silent Hill era of puzzle solving, where weird situation, so what random item in my inventory is going to work? Now, combat is also another kind of annoyance, but again, if you are somebody remembering the old days of survival horror where you weren't supposed to be the Doom Marine fighting enemies, this point may not be such a negative for you. So we have 19, I guess maybe 18th century weapons, and Combat is, again, very slow, very methodical. You are not going to be playing this like Resident Evil 2 or Resident Evil 7 by any means. And when you're using melee weapons, it is almost impossible in a lot of cases to avoid taking damage from enemies. And this is very much a game that you want to avoid combat whenever possible. So, all in all, I really like a lot of things I saw with Lamentum. The setting is very unique. The game does a lot with this very basic aesthetic, but the very stylized or very unique hand-drawn look for the cutscenes. If you're looking for a classical style survival horror game, and again, don't mind the little quirks and nitpicks of that design, this could be a great game for you. But if you've been, getting yourself or getting acclimated to modern day horror games or more action focused ones, then this one may be too far of a stretch for you to go back to this kind of design. Now, moving on to, again, something completely different. We're just like switching tones all over the place. This is Spitlings. Now, this was a game we played co-op on stream, which is why you're not hearing any sound, because we were kind of talking the whole time. And this is a cooperative arcade-style game, where it plays a lot like there's a SNES game where you had to pop bubbles, and you had to avoid the bubbles while you're doing it. And I do not remember the name of it. And if anyone knows that, please let me know. But your goal is to rescue these Spitlings. And to do that, you're going to explore these areas and try and kill all the enemies while not getting hit yourself. Now, each character can spit like a different amount, or they spit the same amount of that kind of goo that you see. When you jump and you shoot down, it allows you to kind of propel yourself upward. Now, the twist is that it is single hit kills. So if you are hit by anything, you have to restart. And if you're playing this co-op, as we can see right here, then if one of your friends gets hit, the whole level must be restarted. So this will probably ruin some friendships along the way for sure. And again, just a really simple or just very straightforward gameplay loop that is elevated by having the co-op and the very weird aesthetic. Kind of like that kind of 90s, disgusting toy aesthetic, I think. I don't remember too many of them off the top of my head. But all of our characters here just kind of spit their way to freedom. And if you have friends who are interested in playing a very weird and wacky co-op game, and don't mind losing a lot, I would say give this one a check. With that said, we're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we got a few more indie games to check out for this video. And now for a quick shout out to our current Game Wisdom supporters and sponsors. Going forward, all Patreon supporters will get early access to our videos. And if you'd like to continue this discussion on game design, be sure to check out our Discord channel, linked down below. If you're looking for more wisdom about game design, be sure to check out my latest offering of books, 20 Essential Games to Study, aimed for first-time developers and students looking for some inspiration for their upcoming games, and Game Design Deep Dive Platformers if you're interested in anything regarding 2D and 3D platforming design. They're both available in print, digital, and wherever books are being sold. For our next game, this is Book of Demons Hellcards. We played this again co-op with Shark, which is why there is no sound. But this was perhaps, I think, the surprise hit for us from the Steam Festival. So if you remember, the first Book of Demons was kind of a quasi-light-hearted papercraft take on ARPG design. So almost a Diablo Light. With Hellcards here, developers are now tackling the deck-building roguelike design, stuff like Slay the Spire, Monster Train, things like that, but with its own unique take. And the unique take this time is co-op. Now, the build that was available on the festival was multiplayer only for up to 3 players, but they have promised a single player version. But I feel multiplayer may be where this game is best suited. So, our concept here is that you and up to 2 other players have to survive against enemies. As you fight, the game will give you a heads up as to who's attacking what their actual capacity is going to be, and it's up to you to decide who to target, who to stun, and things along those lines. As with the previous Book of Demons, you have 3 classes to choose from: Warrior, Archer, and Mage. And they each have unique cards and abilities that go with it. Now, here's what I really liked about this. This is a cooperative roguelike, and we really don't see games that go along those lines. Now, as it says in the bottom right, there will be more of a carryover and a campaign structure in the finished game. In this version, we basically just deal with kind of the character level. Every time we win or level up, we get a new card that we can add in. And the synergy, not only between cards in your own deck, but with your friends, is what really kind of like piqued my interest in playing this game. So here's an example. Shark's character, he's playing as the sorcerer here. He can have a spell that pushes all enemies outside of that inner ring. That's kind of melee range. When he does that, I have a card that does increased damage based on if enemies are far away from me. I also have cards that allow me to draw additional copies or draw more cards, which also activates for Shark's abilities. So if Shark doesn't draw a card that he can use, I can try and draw some for him using my abilities. And I really, really like this kind of interplay, not only between decks, but with potential strategies with your friends. And as you can see, we're kind of working together here to deal with these enemies. Now, as with Book of Demons, or with the first game, it's still very much this paper craft style. And if you don't like that aesthetic, this game is not going to do it for you. If I had any legitimate concerns, is that we did not get to see anything, again, campaign or structure related. The demo was strictly multiplayer or just strictly combat focus. But we were both very impressed, and we were kind of having, red flags, or we're a little concerned about this game when we first loaded up, thinking, oh, it's multiplayer only, what could they do with it? But this cooperative aspect with the deck building gameplay, I think really does elevate this concept. And this will definitely be, I think, a really standout game for like a multiplayer co-op night, or to see more of it when it's released. Now, fortunately, we don't have a solid date for it at this time. But if you like what I've been saying over the last few minutes, definitely keep an eye out for this one. Our next game is Figment Creed Valley. This is the sequel to the first Figment, which could basically be described as Psychonauts, but with Legend of Zelda. And the game, again, has aesthetics and charm for days. This game obviously takes place after the first one. We play as Dusty, who represents the courage, or I guess the heroic aspect of this person's mind. And when doubt begins to creep in about settling down and having a family, nightmares and other maladies have begun to take over. And it's up to Dusty, along with his little sidekick there, to beat them back and make things once again normal for our friend. And I gotta say, this game, the mind here I think kind of looks like my mind, with all these weird puzzles and platforming challenges, or just adventure. So, again, the design is very mirrored to the Legend of Zelda, or to an action-adventure gameplay. You move around, you can attack enemies in real time, but you'll spend most of your time solving puzzles. And now this is, of course, one of the major nightmares that you're going to fight. And speaking about nightmares, every boss is a musical number. I'm not kidding. When you fight a boss, they will fight you with enemies and with song. which is as crazy as it is hilarious. Now, from what I've played of the demo of this one, it feels a little bit more structured in terms of more the puzzle design. There's of course the ever popular hitting switches will move platforms up and down and try to get the right order. You'll have to change how the mind works by using these kinds of emotion orbs, which will affect how people respond to you and what areas will become accessible. And again, the game just has a lot of charm to it. And if you're a fan of action-adventure gameplay, I would say this is a good one to check out. And if you haven't played the first Figment, definitely look at that one as well, as it is just more of this kind of gameplay. And yet, I had to at least let you see a little bit of the musical boss fight in this video. But yeah, definitely enjoyed this one, and at some point I would like to try and finish the first Figment as well. But let's move on. And we go from one musical element kind of game to another. This is Rhythm Doctor. And this is a very interesting game. It is essentially a one-button press, but you need to time your button presses or button pressings to the rhythm of the music. And each character has a story as well as different things you have to do that will mess with the beats. Every time you do things correct, the boss meter goes down, but when you fail, the patience starts to act up as well. And this is one of those games that is 100% not for me. I am horrible when it comes to rhythm-based games, and even trying to play this one, I struggled with it. And you'll see it as the beats begin to get messed up, and the game just starts to glitch out on you right here. But this is one of those games that is clearly meant for people wanting this kind of specific gameplay. If you like these kinds of rhythm challenges, again, stuff like Guitar Hero, Parappa the Rapper, etc., then this game is going to be for you. But if you found that kind of design to be way too frustrating, then keep very far away from Rhythm Doctor here. I don't know if the developers are going to put anything in terms of accessibility or approachability to make things easier for people who are rhythmically challenged, like myself. But I will say that for a game with a very streamlined or very basic kind of gameplay to it, the developers are really exploring this space to see everything that they can do to make things more challenging or evolve this kind of one-button rhythm-focused design. For our final game in this video, this is Exo One. And this is another very unique kind of gameplay loop. We play this spear that has been sent out to explore the universe. And to do that, we're going to kind of move, jump, hover, and float our way across some very beautiful landscapes. Again, this first area is kind of all desert, but when we get into the air, you're going to see some just beautiful graphics. And definitely a showcase in terms of like that kind of detail environment design. But the game itself is set up to be kind of like one of those like very zen, very relaxing kind of games where you're just kind of exploring and seeing where things go. Now, the actual movement and motion is all kind of designed around real-time or realistic physics. As we move, we build a momentum that we can use to glide, bounce our way around. I mean, look at those cloud effects right there. It's just very impressive. Now, in terms of the actual gameplay, I did have some problems. I've never been really good with these kinds of very momentum or physics-focused kind of games like this. Again, we had so much trouble with getting over it. And while this game definitely doesn't hit getting over it levels of frustration, the whole movement, especially to kind of be going up and then going back down to kind of build yourself up more speed, almost like the cape physics in Mario, it was just not working for me. And with this kind of demo, I don't know what is kind of the point of this game. Will there be actual things to do in it? Or is it just exploring and find whatever is the next trigger or MacGuffin in the area? But definitely very impressive in terms of its graphics, and again, this kind of physics-driven kind of design. If it works for you, I think this is definitely a game to check out. But if you're hoping for a little bit more meat on the bones in terms of this gameplay loop, I don't know if Exo One is going to work along those lines. With that said, we're going to wrap up this video here. I would like to thank all the games who had demos available. If you'd like me to take a look at your game for a future stream or video, please get in touch. You'll find links to all the store pages in the description down below. As always, check out our Discord and Patreon, and come back for daily discussions on game design here and on game wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games. Until next time, take care. Thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed things, be sure to do all the liking and subscribing that the kids are doing these days. Check out our Discord channel link down below, where we hang out and chat game design, and come back later tonight for our regular streamings. But that's it, and tune in for more great content here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.